Greetings fellow sim racers. This is a little video which will demonstrate to you how important camber is on a car and how you tune it up with the stiffness of your suspension and roll angle. But it's something I sometimes do and something I check as my process into actually checking the size of the contact patch you have on your rear tyres. Or all your tyres, but your rear tyres in this particular car's case, when it's a car that really struggles for traction. This car is the E30 M3 Evo, I believe, which is pretty much maxed out in terms of power, and it gives it real problems with traction. So what this will demo is just what kind of a difference it makes, not just to the handling of the car but the overall lap time as well, and how you can actually check that your contact patches for your driven wheels, rear wheels in this case, are actually as much in contact with the tarmac as possible, because that's ultimately what suspension is for. So typically when a car's got racing soft tyres, you automatically set up really stiff, which is what this will be. So stiff suspension, stiff anti-roll bars, and only one camber on the rear. And then go and do some laps. So I just did a couple of laps, and what you'll see with this, and it's purely just because of the contact my rear tyres are making, that this is typically what people struggle with this car. So you can see I can't put the power down on this car. It wants to back end, always wanting to come out, struggling to stay on the track. But if you pay close attention to the actual throttle input, and then later you're going to see the inside of the car where you can actually see my steering input much better with the steering wheel rather than with the little red dot. But just how much you struggle to put the power down. You can almost do what you like with the diffs. That tends to make the cars a bit more snappy, or a bit more oversteery, understeery. But really, the ultimate drive and traction into round and out of corners is so much about the camber. And it's obviously in corners that you really need that. So this is a reasonable lap, but it was a struggle. The car was slipping and sliding all over the place. And you see this is 125.2. Okay. Now, this is a trick I do. I will watch back my laps, but then I'll pause it and actually have a look at the car, because the physics, although they get a bad rep on Gran Turismo, are actually quite a bit better than you might think. So I go into photo mode and I'm going to have a look at the actual angle of the tyre on the road, and you'll see some good examples in a minute, because I'll do what I can with share factor inputs and lines on the screen. So you go into a corner, pause it, so tyres are under load, and what I'm looking for is how square on that tyre is. Now you can see there's a slope on that tyre, so the tyre's vertically down on the road, but you can see the bottom is deflected. So you're looking at the actual contact, so you're looking for a nice flat tyre. You can see this contact is not 90 degrees. So that means the tyre is being scrubbed across the track, so the outside of the tyre is really heavily loaded, the inside isn't, and that's reducing the size of your contact patch. Well, on we go again, inside the car, so you can see the steering inputs. So you can see me struggling with oversteer, trying to control the power. Now most of these corners are cambered, which actually helps the roll of the car. So we'll go in a second. Not a particularly great track to do. Again, I'm looking at the angle of the surface of the tyre on the angle of the road, and you can see that that's not quite 90 degrees. So again, that means the outside of the tyre is much more heavily loaded than the inside. Not what you want. You want it even. Carrying on around the lap. This is because you don't get telemetry and data. You can't actually see these physics in play until you do this sort of thing. Another corner. Pause it. Again, look at the loading of the tyre. And put some straight lines across it. Now, of course, the inside tyre doesn't matter so much because that's almost unloaded anyway. So again, that's not 90 degrees. That means, again, the outside of the tyre is being more heavily loaded, and the contact patch is uneven, small, and ultimately is what loses you traction. So, on to the next part of the lap. Yeah, the tyre deformation in this game is actually surprisingly good. The physics are a little bit better than people give it credit for. Again, vertical angle, look for a nice square on angle, put some lines up. Again, that's not quite 90 degrees. Now, this may not look like much to you on the screen, but when you see it compared to a lap where I do put a lot more camber in and soften the rear suspension up, because don't forget this is a low downforce car now, so nearly all of its grip is coming from mechanical grip, it's coming from the suspension geometry, and you need to adjust that geometry to suit the car. So come out another corner, let's have another look. A bit of a flatter road, but the camber's helping, and then try and line it up. I'll always have a good look to see if the car's bottoming out as well. Have a good look around the car, see if your front split is actually on the ground. You want it as close as possible, of course. So again, I don't see that as 90 degrees. So the tyre is not completely flat on the road, because the camber and the roll angle is not actually enough for this particular car. Then carry on a little bit more into the last corner. Flat piece of road now, so this will be a little bit more obvious. Any sort of loading, probably should have done it on the apex, but hey, it is what it is. You can do this, of course, as much as you like. This is just the footage I recorded. Again, you can see that inside tyre is pretty flat on the track, but that's not taking much load. It's the outside one that matters. And again, you can see not much roll angle in the car. That means the tyre will deform and your contact patch will reduce. And that's, again, not quite 90 degrees. Looks close, looks small, but you'll see the difference in handling and lap time. Right, got a good idea of what that is. Take screenshots and then compare them side by side, which is what I'll do at the end. And you can see it's more plain to see. So, struggly, bad handling, slow lap. Every corner was a fight. So now I want a lot more roll. So soften a lot more roll bars, and with the roll comes your camber. So if the car rolls more, that means I can put more angle in the tyre and get it to lean on that tyre more. And that will increase actually increase the size of the contact patch and the pressure on it as well. Soften the suspension up a bit. And now watch the difference in lap time and how the car drives. So again, you're probably looking fairly closely at the throttle input. Turn 1 is plain to see. I'm going here, and I can get the power on and nice and early I'm at full throttle and no issues. Next corner, power on early, car's just going where I put it. I actually got a nice good four-wheel drift going on in there, because of course the suspension being softer at the rear means it's going to turn into corners better anyway. If you need to dial that out, but this car's about traction. So it's a couple of laps. We've already done a lap that's 24.6, what's that, 0.6 of a second quicker. Big compression that comes in the corkscrew, firm dampers for that. And you can see the power's down early. The car's just gripping up. I'm not fighting it all over the place. And the lap time just keeps coming and coming and coming. I actually messed up this last corner, so I'm 0.8 up, but I didn't get the power down anywhere near early enough on that, but hey, this could easily have been a couple of tenths quicker. So 23.9, 1.3 seconds quicker, probably 1.5 if it was a decent lap, and a lot easier to drive. So now, same thing, watch your lap back. You got it inside so you can see the steering inputs again. Come to the same corners and have a look. More roll at the rear. Now that looks exactly 90 degrees square on. So just 3 more degrees of camber has taken 3 more degrees out of that angle and put it from about, I guess, 87 degrees to 90 degrees, flat on the road, exactly where you want it. Get the power down nice and easy. This was an absolute lovely drift, that was. It's 4-wheel drift. That's exactly what you want. So another corner, again comparing it, and you look at deflection and look, that is completely 90 degrees square on, full contact with the road. Inside tyre doesn't matter, that's going to be coming off the road even more, but that's doing almost nothing. So carry on again, and a car that's nowhere near as much as a fight to drive. Pause, walk mode, go and have a look again. So you see the inside tyre, there's only half of it actually in contact with the road. Doesn't matter. Big roll angle on the car, you can see it really leaning on that outside tyre. It's increasing the weight to that tyre, and again, that is exactly, as far as I can tell with my eyes, 90 degrees, flat on the track. So again, carry on. And of course, a car that's stable at the rear, stable on power, gives you the confidence to push it as well. You don't have to worry about fighting to keep it on the island. Again, pause, corkscrew, same corner. That, again, completely flat. 90 degrees, maybe a tad under. But of course, there's always a trade-off. Your high energy corners and high speed, high compression corners, and your low energy corners, your slow speed corners, you're not going to get as much roll. So of course there's always that trade-off. But that's how setup works. Again, have a good look. That looks completely square on to me. Am I bottoming out at the front? No, I've got maybe a couple of centimetres to spare. And that looks pretty nice to me. So that looks completely flat on. So you'll see a bit clearer when I compare all these images, all these stills, with the slow lap, slow setup, and the fast lap, fast setup. Again, coming into a corner, going around there quite nicely. Have a look. Looks nicely square on to me as well. Get right behind the car. That looks about 90 degrees to me. Fully evenly loaded tyre. You're not going to get more out of the traction than that. With all the weight rolling onto that side. And then onto the final corner. Flat piece of track now, no camber. So it should be a bit more obvious, but this will probably be a little bit too much camber for it. And it looks like looks a bit under 90 degrees, and that means the inside of the tyre is a bit overloaded, but that's a slow corner, low energy corner. So most of them are high energy as far as this traction is concerned. So that's your trade-off. So that corner may not actually be as fast as the other setup, but what you lose there, you're going to gain everywhere else in the lap. And come through, finish your lap, at least 1.3 seconds quicker. Now, just in case you couldn't see what I'm seeing, see the difference in these tyres. Slow, fast. Look at the difference in the deformation of that tyre. Much square on, especially here. That final corner is better than I thought, actually. So obviously it's not the same on every car you drive, but have a look at this. Look how much more rear camber I'm running compared to the cars around me. And you also see, even here, look how much more roll angle I've got compared to the cars around me. So obviously this is just because this is a car that's struggling to get the power down out of corners. If you've got a car that's struggling to put the power down in a straight line, then obviously you don't want loads of camber, because you want maximum contact patch when the car's going straight, which means minimal camber, minimal roll. But then you probably want soft rear suspension to load up the rear and shift the weight rearwards as well. But another car, another tactic, another setup change. But it's good though, because you know, GT7's physics get a bad rep, and you don't have telemetry data available to you, but you can use things like this, and it does actually help. And you can't just be expected to feel what the car's doing through your force feedback or the way it's handling. But if you can't quite feel it, and you don't know exactly what to do by the feel and the way the car's driving around the track, do something like this, because you might actually discover something.